Our gospel reading on this All Saints Sunday is all taken from the Sermon on the Mount, but it jumps around a little. It's going to be the beginning of that sermon, Matthew 5, verses 1 through 12, and then skipping down to chapter 6 and verses 19 to 21. The Spirit would surely speak something into your life today from these readings, and I would pray that you would be open to it. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." And now in chapter 6. "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. People always know where your heart is, don't they? If they're paying attention, which sometimes they're not, and if they care to know, which sometimes they don't, sometimes they'd rather believe that it's someplace else. But if they care to see it, they will indeed know when you're being true and when you're being false. They will. They'll know. Others might know it about us more than we know it about ourselves, actually. You can fake a lot of things, but you cannot fake the best things. Your passion, your time, your energy, your resources will always flow toward the things you care about, to what you love. And people know what that is, if they care to know, if they're paying attention. Where is your heart? Where is your heart? What do people see when they look at your life? So we finally purchased an old hunting camp up north in Venango County, where Michelle and I are originally from. But further up, way up there, almost to the Allegheny National Forest. A hunter I am not. Can you even imagine? I nearly wreck my car all the time over here on Pin Oak because of all those squirrels that I don't want to run over. Daring little creatures who will risk everything just to get to the other side of the street. I am not hungry enough to hunt, but I love the woods, and I will not be able to backpack forever. Also, I do a lot of writing and a lot of thinking and a lot of praying, and a hunting camp is the perfect place to do those things, as long as it's not the weekend after Thanksgiving, when the woods becomes Iwo Jima from all the hunting. And the place was dirt cheap. It was very cheap. It was just an old single-wide mobile home from the 1970s, sitting on 2 acres of woods. A widow lady used to live there by herself. It was her home. And so it's got a well, and it's got a furnace and a water heater and a stove, and most of the conveniences of life. She actually had a full basement dug under this mobile home, and a mudroom and a porch built onto it, so it's nice. Now, I looked into buying some land and building a cabin which would have been tailored specifically to us, but it was too much. The cost of clearing the land and digging a well and putting in a driveway and a septic system and building a cabin and getting all the appliances, it was just too much in terms of cost and labor. Besides, I have enjoyed going over this old place slowly on my days off and making it ours. The lady who lived there before us, Dorothy was her name, she died inside the home, and she left me lots of clues about who she was and what her life was. She left a porcelain cross out in the trees where I assume she buried a pet, and a picket fence around the front door where I assume she let that pet play. She left these old valances or valances. I don't even know how to pronounce them because I've never had them. She left these old valances above all the windows, but no curtains and no blinds. She left a full set of nice, good quality baking pans stashed away in the oven. And in the basement, in an orderly cabinet, I found light bulbs and furnace filters and dust rags and a tape measure. And I've had fun putting the pieces together to create a sketch of who Dorothy might have been. What mattered to her? This woman who left her home to me. Dorothy was meticulous, and she loved at least one animal, which usually means you love more than one animal. She was organized, and she was thorough, and she was a trusting soul because who else would live alone in the woods with no curtains to close at night? One of the first things I did was to buy curtains for those windows. I found her obituary online, and I gotta say, I'm a pretty good sleuth. They said about her the things that I said here in this sermon. You know, it's popular and it's a good thing to do at the beginning of events nowadays. It's popular to give thanks to the native peoples who have stewarded this land before us, the land on which the event is held, and to name them and to honor their stewardship of that place. It's especially fun when a speaker comes to our adult education class and tries to stump us by asking if we know who those people are, and little do they count on the fact that we've got 2 anthropologists, archaeologists in the class. But now when I'm at our camp cleaning up and trying to make it ours, I might feel the same thing for the Erie people and the Seneca people, but I feel that thing for Dorothy, the lady whose home I now occupy, the very humble home that she kept so lovingly since, I guess, the 1970s. It's in my care now and mine to enjoy, and I'm grateful to her. The love that she had for that place and for her life there, you can kind of feel it. And I don't mean in a ghostly way. I mean in the way she cared for the place. It's still evident, that love. It feels like a loved place. That love lingers over it like an echo, like a morning mist. I could never have built an equal place in the woods. It would have been too expensive. It would have been too much work. I don't know how to do it. Besides, Dorothy's heart was in that place. I can feel it when I'm there. Again, not in a ghostly way. And that feeling is a thing that you cannot construct. We receive so much more in this life than we give. We receive so much from people we will never know and never be able to thank. We receive so much that's readily handed down to us and given to us. So much more than we could ever build by or for ourselves, right down to the language we speak. All of it a gift passed on to us by people who've gone before. People plant their varied hearts in different places, their energies, their time, their loves, their lives. They sow these things into the waiting soil of our world. And then you and I reap the benefits. And we are asked to do the same. And we will do the same, whether we try to or not. Because wherever we have loved, wherever we have had our hearts, it will show in this world. You probably noticed that I have dismembered the Sermon on the Mount this morning. I've cherry-picked from it. That's because we've got two big things going on this day, with communion to shorten my preaching time. It is All Saints, when we give thanks for all those people living and dead who made us and make us who we are, and who leave their goodness in us, their love and their lives. But it's also the day when I'm called upon to speak to you about stewardship. That's to say, the way our life's energies and skills and attentions and time and resources will always flow toward those things that matter to us. You know, in the Beatitudes, which we just read, in Jesus' roll call of the blessed, he names those many whom the world deems to be of less account. The sad, the humble, the weak, the hungry. Such are the saints whose legacy of goodness lives on in us. Most of the time, it's not the famous people, it's not the powerful people, it's the simple people that we knew by name, whose characters we knew. I'm sure you could name at least half a dozen of your own private saints, and they are probably mostly obscure individuals, unglamorous, whose lives live on in you. Later in the same sermon, Jesus reminds us that we too are someone's saints, that where our heart is, there our attentions and our energies and our love will be too. If our hearts are in the right places, then the warmth and the energy of our lives will outlive us and remain to brighten the world. And so let me ask you, who are your saints? Who comes to your mind today? Let's think about those imperfect saints whose memory lights up the dark corners of our minds and hearts, whose images fill the pantheon of our imaginations. For it is less the historical, actual person that matters. It's more the person we have imagined them to be that matters. Memory is often self-serving, and we remember people as we need to, not strictly as they were. In that way, their ongoing presence with us can always bring us strength. For we get to live with them as they should have been, at least for us, and as they often were, but not always. We get to see them forever in the sainthood that they did not wear all the time here below, but which, please God, they have claimed above. Who are yours? Who saw you when others didn't? Who saw something in you that others could not see and nudged you toward what was good? We will call them saints, but they would not have claimed that word for themselves, would they? Because if you claim that word, you're not a saint. If you say you're a saint, it kind of negates being a saint. The whole point of being a saint is that you don't even know it. You don't even try. Mine was a chain-smoking cousin who died young, and a minister who often lost his battles to stay sober, and a fourth-grade teacher with clown hair, and a grandmother with sad eyes. Each of them looked past their own worries just long enough to see mine and to make a difference as they could. And in doing that, they showed me where their hearts were. Who are yours? Today is the day to pay them tribute, to remember them, to be grateful for them. You know, another thing that's popular nowadays is DIY it spirituality, do-it-yourself spirituality. And we must own the fact that a lot of do-it-yourselfers in the spiritual realm are behaving a lot more like Jesus than a lot of church folk. But even still today, when people bump up against the big questions of life, when they come to the big junctures in life, marriage, birth, death, they still long for a wisdom and a mystery and perhaps even a community that is bigger than they alone can be, bigger than they alone can reach. People will always seek what the church offers, even if they can't really believe that the church does indeed offer it. In this quest for meaning, we need each other. We need a community gathered. We might try to build meaning from scratch, but it would cost too much in terms of time and energy and labor. The end product would be entirely tailored to us, but it would lack the well-worn, loving presence of the saints around us and the saints before us. There is beauty in what we do here, in what we call church. It's sloppy and it's costly and it can be cumbersome, but there's so much beauty and so much goodness that we don't have to give ourselves. It's there when we need it. I don't know what the future of churches might be, but what a tragedy if the business of making meaning fell upon each individual and not upon a community. The stories around which we gather, the sacred writings, the traditions, the holidays, the people with whom we share all of this, altogether these things make up the church in this time and in this place. It is sorely needed in the world today. Our kind of faith, rooted in history but not enslaved to it, emphasizing love, not judgment. Our kind of faith must be available in generations to come. Consider the saints in your life on this All Saints Sunday. See how you and they fit into the same story. And if the ministries of this church have helped you along the way in life, be generous to this church. Your passion, your time, your energy, your resources will always flow toward those things that matter to you, toward those things that you love. Amen.